Hello everyone, welcome to Software Academy. In this session, let us discuss the features of C programming language. Let us discuss the first feature. C is a middle level language. In order to understand this, I am going to explain you the classification of programming language, on what basis the programming languages are classified, and what are the disadvantages and advantages of each, and when should you use what type of language. So this will enable us to understand how C falls under the middle level language category. Let us start with an example. Consider here there are two Indians waiting in a bus stop. So the Indian one is new to the city and he wants to ask which particular bus goes to so and so location. So he will be able to communicate it in Hindi, which is his native language, and the other Indian would be able to reply back in Hindi as it is his native language too. So here in this example, you don't require any translation, or you don't require any other additional language to be known, since both of them have the common native language. Now the same Hindi speaking Indian went to Mexico as he got some on-site opportunity. He will not be able to ask the same question in Hindi, right? So in this case, he needs a translator who could understand both Hindi and Spanish so that he can get the answer whatever he wants. With the help of these examples, let us understand how the programming languages are further classified. They are classified into three types: low-level languages, middle-level languages, high-level languages. And the low-level languages are further classified to machine language, assembly language. What is machine language? Machine language is the only language which computer can understand directly. So it is also called as machine code or first generation language. It is nothing but it is just written in the form of ones and zeros. So for example, if you want to add two digits, for example, if you want to add number 1 and number 3, then you cannot directly say to computer add the numbers 1 and 3 in the language which you know. You have to code it in the form of ones and zeros, then only the computer will be able to understand. And since you are writing directly in the machine language, when you are trying to execute the program, you does not require any translator program, because you are writing in the language which machine can understand. This is the thing which we have seen in the first example. When the Indian is trying to speak in Hindi to the other Indian, there is no need of any translation program, because in the similar way, when you are writing the code in machine language, you do not require any translator program, because the machine can directly understand zeros and ones. Let us discuss the advantages of machine language. So, as we discussed, machine language is directly written in the form of ones and zeros, which computer can understand directly, and there is no translation required. So, because of this, the speed of your execution will be more compared to the other languages, because you directly have your code and that can be executed on your hardware directly, and there is no need of any extra time for the translation. So the first and the best advantage is that the programs written in the machine language are faster compared to the other level languages. And then in the machine level language, since you are directly accessing the memory, you can always make efficient uses of memory. Let us discuss the disadvantages of machine language. Number one, the important one is machine language is machine dependent. Here, since the internal design of every computer is different from one another, the machine language is also different from one computer to another computer. For example, if you want to develop the code for Intel x86 processor, it will have a specific instruction set. So the machine language is dependent only on that particular instruction set. So now if you develop a program for that processor, this program cannot be run on the any other processor which is of different family. So because of which we are saying that the machine code is machine dependent. So if you want to code for other processor, you have to code the entire logic using the instruction set defined for that particular processor. And the next one is, see, in this case, as I told you, the whole code is in the form of zeros and ones. For example, if you want to say add, then add will have some logic, or add will have some representation in the form of ones and zeros. And the next thing you have to say from which memory location I have to add. So this again will have ones and zeros. To which destination I have to give the result. This again will be in the form of ones and zeros. And finally, what are the numbers you have to add. So this is also in the form of ones and zeros. So now in this case, first thing you have to remember what is the code for add and what will be the memory address. So all these things makes it difficult for the developer to program. And also with this we can understand it is difficult to debug. For example, if you are not getting the desired result, you want to debug the program. In that case, first you have to recollect what is the code for add and in which address you have given and what is the destination you have given. So you have to recollect these things. So here you are not only debugging the logic, you are also trying to recollect the basic information. So it makes it difficult to debug. And since you are writing everything in the form of ones and zeros, which is not easily understandable or easily remembered one, it is always error prone. There are chances that you make errors. Now let us discuss what is assembly language. In order to avoid the limitations of machine language, the assembly language is developed. In machine language, we use everything in the form of ones and zeros. But whereas in assembly language, you use combination of letters instead of certain machine codes in the form of ones and zeros. Hence, this makes the programmer's life easy to develop the code. But the computer cannot directly understand the assembly language because, as we already discussed, it understands only machine language in the form of ones and zeros. Hence, the assembly language should be first translated into the machine code and then only it can be executed on the computer. And this language is also called as second generation language. Now let us discuss what is assembly language. As we have already discussed, there are certain limitations with the machine language. The first limitation is everything you have to remember in the form of ones and zeros. So in order to make the programmer's life easy, assembly language was developed. In assembly language, you can use some combination of letters instead of everything in ones and zeros. But the computer cannot understand the assembly language directly. Hence, it has to be translated into machine language, and for doing this, there is a program called assembler. And this language is also called as second generation language. Now let's discuss what are the advantages of assembly language. So in the assembly language, as we are using some combination of letters, it is easier for programmer to understand the language, to learn the language and to develop the code. This saves a lot of time and effort for the programmer. And also the other thing is, since many of things are in letters, it is easier for him to correct the errors because the only thing which he has to think about is logic compared to the machine language. And also, since there is only one translation step required between assembly language and the final output, so this will also have the same speed of execution. It will be faster. Let us discuss what are the disadvantages of assembly language. So, as like the machine language, assembly language is also machine dependent. A program written for one processor cannot be executed on the other processor. And the second one is, even though it is better compared to machine language, but still it is not that developer friendly because still it is not using any English words or something very easy for the developer to understand and remember. Hence, these are the disadvantages of assembly language. Now let's come to the third category, which are high-level languages. So high-level languages are invented in order to avoid the limitations of both machine level language and assembly level language. And why high-level languages are invented? They are invented to make the programmer's life more easily, because if your program is in the form of something very close to your language, then it is easy for you to remember the instructions and it is easy for you to program the instructions, and overall it takes less time for the programmer to develop the code. So what are the advantages of high level language? High level languages are user friendly because the programmer can easily understand them, easily debug them, and they are similar to the English, and they use English vocabulary and also the well-known symbols. Because of this, they are easier to learn, they are easier to maintain and easier to debug. Also, the one best thing is a program written in a high level language can be translated into any machine language and it can be run on any computer. The only thing which you require is it should have a appropriate translator program. For example, you are developing the code in a particular high level language for one particular processor. So in order to execute the code, you should have a compiler which is related to that x86 processor. And if you want to execute the same code on another processor, it's not required for you to redevelop the code. The only thing is you should have a compiler which is sufficient for the processor where you want to run. What are the disadvantages of high level language? So now a high level language has to be translated into the machine language by a translator if you want to execute it by the CPU. But the thing is, since the high level language is written in the form of English, which is far away from the machine code, it really takes a lot of time to translate the whole program into the machine code, and this makes your program execution slower. And the other thing is, in high level language, you will have limited access to lower level computer functionalities. Because of this, you cannot perform certain tasks like writing a OS, developing the code for OS, or developing a device driver. Now the final category is middle level language. So now the middle level language is in between high level language and low level language. So now you know what is high level language and what is low level language. C programming is a middle level language. Why? Because C program supports inline assembly language program. It means you will be able to write assembly code in middle of your C program. So this is a feature of low level language. And then C also supports the feature of high level language where it is more user friendly. It is easy to learn. It is in the form of human readable format like English. So since it has both the features of high level language and low level language, that is the reason we are saying C is a middle level language. And also with the help of C, you can do system programming for writing operating systems and all, which is only possible with low level language. And also with the help of C, you can do application programming, which is mostly done by the high level language. Since now you can do both the things which are done by low level language and high level language, so C is considered as a middle level language. Overall, we can understand that machine language is closer to the hardware and high level language is closer to the human, because of which machine language is faster to execute and the memory efficiency will be more in terms of machine language, and as you go down the pyramid this gets decreased. And here in high level language it is more closer to human but it is very far from the machine. That is the reason the program execution speed will be lower compared to the machine language, and the memory efficiency utilization will also be lower compared to machine language. So now on a final note, you might be thinking which language to choose. So again, it depends upon the requirement. It depends upon the feature you are developing. So if you want high speed, your program has to be executed very faster. And also you can't afford memory. I mean to say you are having a limited memory on which your program has to reside. In this case, go with low level language. And if you are okay with the speed and if you are okay with the memory where you are in between, then you can go for the middle level language. And the final thing, if you are not that concerned about the speed and you can afford memory, but the only thing is it has to be more user friendly, it has to be more maintainable, in that case go for high level language. We are concluding our session here. So guys, please subscribe to our channel and please encourage us. Please click on the bell button to get our video updates. And in the next session, we would cover the second feature. We will try to explain why C is considered as a structured language. So thank you guys.